This is the last photograph my family has of me. The problem is, I am not in it. The app calls that a successful restoration. I found it while helping my mother clear out the house where I grew up. A pipe had burst above the hall closet sometime during the winter, soaking 3 cardboard boxes before either of us noticed. Most of what was inside could be replaced, but one box held every family photograph my father had refused to put on a computer. He had died 2 years earlier, and my mother had finally decided to sell the house. Saving those pictures felt like the one useful thing I could do for her. I scanned the least damaged ones at work. For the rest, I downloaded a free photo restoration app called Memora. Its page promised to repair scratches, rebuild missing backgrounds, and reconstruct faces from other photographs in your library. It asked for access to every picture on my phone. I allowed it. The first photograph was from my 6th birthday. Water had dissolved the right third of the print, leaving my father without an arm and the edge of the kitchen table as a brown smear. I uploaded the scan, moved a slider marked Damage Level 2 Severe, and pressed Restore. The app worked for less than a minute. It gave my father his arm back. It sharpened the candles on my cake. It repaired the yellow flowers on the wallpaper. It also added a little girl beside me. She looked about 7. She wore a red cardigan over a white dress, and one hand was wrapped around my sleeve, as if I might pull away. Her dark hair had been cut unevenly across her forehead. There was a thin, pale scar around her left wrist. I assumed the app had invented her to fill the damaged space. Generative software does that. It guesses, and sometimes the guess is a person. Then I restored our Christmas photograph from the following year. The girl was sitting beneath the tree with the same face and the same scar. Her cardigan was green, and she held a wooden rabbit I had never seen before. I tried a photograph from a beach holiday when I was 12. She stood ankle deep in the water behind my parents, still 7 years old, wearing a blue swimsuit that matched the year. I fed the app my first day of school, a summer barbecue, and a photograph of my father washing his car. She appeared in all of them. Her clothes changed. Her face did not. Finally, I scanned a photograph from my parents' wedding, taken 3 years before I was born. The print was barely damaged, so I expected the app to clean the dust and leave everything else alone. The restored version showed the girl crouching beneath the table where my parents were cutting their cake. She was looking directly at the camera. I checked my phone for malware. I deleted the restored files, cleared the app cache, and processed the wedding photograph again with the phone in airplane mode. The girl returned in exactly the same position. That was when I showed my mother. She was wrapping plates in newspaper at the kitchen table. I put the phone in front of her and prepared to explain what the app had done. Before I could speak, she touched the girl's face with one finger. "It finally got Mara right," she said. I asked who Mara was. My mother looked at me as if I had made a cruel joke. "Your sister." I reminded her that I was an only child. She shook her head. "No, you were the eldest. Mara came after you." She began telling me things no software could have supplied. Mara refused to pour milk on her cereal because she hated the sound it made. She called our father Papa, even after I switched to Dad. The scar on her wrist came from catching it on a broken radiator cover. She slept in the small room at the end of the upstairs hall, and cried whenever the wardrobe door was left open. My mother remembered the wooden rabbit, too. Its name was Button. I asked what happened to Mara. For a few seconds, my mother seemed unable to understand the question. Then she said, "The water took her." She would not tell me what that meant. Every time I pressed, her expression emptied and she started talking about something else. Once she said there had been a hospital. Once she said a reservoir. A minute later, she denied saying either word. We searched the house together. There was no birth certificate for Mara, no school report, and no hospital record. My parents' old tax forms listed one dependent child. The family Bible contained my name and birth date in my father's handwriting, followed by a blank line where another entry might have gone. We watched home videos until midnight. In a recording of my 8th birthday, my mother placed 5 paper cups around a table where only 4 people were sitting. She kept glancing at the empty chair beside me. Just before I blew out the candles, she would pass the camera and said, "Mara, let your brother have his turn." I had watched that tape dozens of times as a child. I had never heard the name before. The room at the end of the hall had always been my father's office. My mother insisted it had belonged to Mara first. We pulled an old bookcase away from the wall. Behind it was a strip of faded wallpaper covered in silver stars. Pencil marks ran up the doorframe, each labeled with a date and a name. Mara, age 5. Mara, age 6. Mara, age 7. The dates were 4 years apart, but all 3 marks were at exactly the same height. The final mark had no age beside it. It was dated that morning. The pencil line was fresh enough to smear under my thumb. My mother went to bed after that. She locked the old office door and took the wooden rabbit with her, though neither of us had found it. At 1042 in the morning, Memora sent me a notification. New memory found. I had revoked its access and deleted every restored image, but the app was still installed. When I opened it, a photograph appeared that I had never uploaded. It showed the upstairs hallway. The picture had been taken from near the ceiling, looking toward the old office. Its door was open by a few inches. In the real hallway, the door was closed and locked. The file information said the photograph had been captured 3 minutes earlier. A second image appeared at 2006. The office door was wider. Button, the wooden rabbit from the Christmas picture, sat in the middle of the hall. I went upstairs with every light on. The door was still locked. The carpet was empty. At 2031, the app found another memory. This one showed a trail of wet footprints beginning outside my mother's room. They were the size of a child's bare feet. In the photograph, each print reflected the hall light, as if the water were fresh. I could smell pond water before I reached the stairs. There were no marks on the carpet, but Button was waiting on the bottom step. Its painted wooden fur was blistered with age. Black water dripped from one foot. I did not touch it. The fourth photograph arrived at 2054. Mara stood at the far end of the hall in her red cardigan. Her face was turned toward the old office, but one eye looked back at the camera. The app had drawn a white box around her head. Beneath it were the words, "SU subject confirmed." I covered both cameras on my phone with electrical tape. I switched off the wireless router, powered down the phone, and placed it face down beneath a glass bowl on the kitchen table. Then I sat on the sofa where I could see it. The next thing I remember is opening my eyes to the sound of a notification. The clock read 32:04. I was lying on the sofa, although I did not remember falling asleep. The phone was still under the bowl. Its screen was lit despite being powered off. New memory. Found. Captured 03,000,008. The photograph had been taken from the upper corner of the living room. It showed me asleep on the sofa. My mother stood in the doorway, wearing her nightdress. Beside me was Mara. She had one hand resting on my chest. In the other, she held my phone. The tape still covered its cameras. The glass bowl was visible on the kitchen table behind her, and beneath the bowl was another identical phone. The app marked Mara with a white box. It marked me with a red one. The words beneath my face read, "Inconsistent." Subject. I ran upstairs to wake my mother. She was sitting on the floor of the old office, with the family album open across her knees. The wallpaper was no longer hidden behind the bookcase. Silver stars covered every wall. A narrow child's bed stood beneath the window, where my father's desk had been. My mother smiled when she saw me. Then the smile faded. Every photograph in the album had changed. Mara was no longer a blurry figure reconstructed at the edge. She stood in the center of birthdays, holidays, and Christmas mornings. My parents held her hands. My father carried her on his shoulders. The photographs looked complete. I was in the early ones, but something happened as the pages turned. First, my face lost focus. Then I was cropped at the shoulder. In one photograph, only my hand remained on my mother's chair. In the newest picture, my mother sat on the living room sofa with Mara standing behind her. There was an empty space where I remembered sitting. My mother looked from the album to me and asked how I had entered her house. I told her my name. For a moment, something moved behind her eyes. I almost remember that. She whispered, "You always were difficult to remember." Then she called for her daughter. My phone began ringing in the hallway. I could see it through the office doorway, raised at the height of a child's face. Nothing appeared to be holding it, but its camera was pointed at us. On my screen, another restoration began by itself. The progress bar reached 100%. The finished photograph showed my mother on the floor and Mara in the doorway holding the phone. I should have been standing between them. There was only silver wallpaper. Restoration complete. 1. Subject removed. A second message replaced it. Family structure. Corrected. I am recording this in the old office now. My mother is outside the door, telling Mara not to stay up so late. The handle keeps turning, but I pushed the bookcase against it. Memora is using the front camera even though the tape is still in place. A live image fills the screen. It shows this room from behind me. The chair is empty. Mara is sitting where I am sitting, holding the phone and speaking with my voice. The app has begun restoring the audio too. If you can hear me, then for the moment it still remembers there was someone else in this family.